So once upon a time, I used to think Big Brother is a dumb show. Logged into Facebook recently and I saw someone whom I went to high school with post a similar thing. Now, the difference is that here at home, my wife watches Big Brother Mzansi season after season after season. Then it confused me because she couldn't quite sell it to me until this season. I decided, let me give it a chance. Let me see what's up with this show. Is there more to it? Is there maybe a little bit of substance? Or is it just about drama and entertainment? Could there be more to it? Because there have been couples that have gone out and made it. So there's that romance element. What about the conflict element? What about strategy? Evictions? Is there all there is to it? I honestly don't think so. So I'm going to use the time in this video to break it down a little further for our benefit because I feel that there are elements of strategy that are worth noting, but over and above that, there's elements of emotional intelligence. It's a social experiment at the end of the day that happens season after season, but it comes with benefits. A monetary prize as an example of a benefit, fame, and all the other positives that we're going to discuss. But there are also plenty of negatives that are worth noting for us, the viewer, from a real life perspective, but more so for these particular housemates. What about the management of pressure? The exposure element in terms of economics? What about branding? So there's more to it. Today, we're not only gossiping, we're analyzing. Because as starters, there's always more on our plate of an intellectual value and of the lessons that we can extrapolate from what we are watching. What exactly is Big Brother? What is it really? Well, Big Brother is a social experiment that happens in a controlled environment. There's a house, there's housemates, there are rules that are applied, and there are sanctions for not complying with those particular rules. To a certain extent, you even become children in this house because you have to refer to Big Brother as Big Brother when actually responding to them. But it's also a pressure cooker environment. What do I mean by that? It will take out your character and you become a canvas to the public in relation to can you handle pressure or not. Difference between a pressure cooker and a slow cooker is that slow and steady wins the race sometimes, but put in a curated environment, then we'll have to work with a pressure cooker environment and how it sharpens and irons your mind in particular ways, particularly when we look at the aspect of group dynamics. It's also a live branding platform. You're selling yourself so that when you leave this particular environment, there's more to you than when you came in. The benefits of which we will still discuss. It's also a strategic survival game. Think Survivor. It's group dynamics, people from different backgrounds, people who are doing well and thriving but want to catapult to the next level. It's people that are just building themselves up. It's people that just want the prize money. It's people with different likes. It's people in a societal framework. They even pay according to how different people are. Think about Squid Games and all the dynamics that were happening within Squid Games. It's no different, except nobody dies here. That's actually the biggest difference. So, Big Brother is meant to test social adaptability, emotional regulation. In this season, Tanega, who's not a likable character, talks about emotional regulation a lot. A lot. And that feeds into public perception. As I just mentioned, she's not a likable character according to me, but from the first few weeks, then you'll see that from a public perception standpoint, she was liked as the straight talker, someone who values their opinion over others, is smart, is eloquent, especially when she uses those bombastic type languages. She's fluent and proficient in the English language, as an example. So those types of things are relatable to people. Communication, it also tests your ability to communicate within a group, to share the spotlight, and to compete, right? Over and above that, it also speaks to alliance building. In the real world, you need to align to some sort of clique or group so that you reap certain benefits. Big Brother tests that in a stronghold, rather confined and isolated space. Let's dive deeper now into the positive lessons that you can take or extrapolate from Big Brother Mzansi. Firstly, emotional intelligence under pressure. I touched on a little bit earlier on, but think about the dynamics that housemates actually face: conflict, rejection, nomination weekly, isolation from the real world and what's actually happening, and of course, public judgment. Now, how they deal with that is what defines the positive correctness of the social experiment, because you learn to control emotions, you learn to manage reactions. In other words, you're not impulsive, you think strategically. If you don't think strategically, you are likely to lose. But you also avoid the impulsive nature of behavior that I was talking about, because there are rules and you break them, you will get into trouble. So in life, the lesson is emotional control is actually a currency. Number two, personal branding and visibility. What does Big Brother teach us? It teaches us that visibility creates opportunity. Yep. The more visible you are, particularly in a space where it's watched by the public and in the millions of an audience, then you become visible. How you use that is up to you. Your personality is marketable. So you are able to align your personality to market who you are, what your talents are. You look at someone like Liema, who's been singing throughout since this season started. She's been exposing us to a talent and her gift of singing. Some people like it, some don't. But if you think about it, without this platform and millions of people watching, how long would it take her to reach that type of audience just for people to listen, admire, and actually recognize her gift and her talent? And then it teaches you consistency, because consistency does build public trust. The more consistent in who you are, the more you showcase your skills, your skill set, your proficiency in certain things, then the better you are able to be seen by the public and trusted by the very same public. Now, what matters is after eviction, housemates are left with a clear identity. That's the strategy they should use. They have to have a clear identity, they have to have strong values, and they must basically work on their charisma so that that translates into the real world. But they also often have to transition into things like influencing. They already have built some sort of community, some sort of public trust, some sort of recognizability. Now they can use that to influence decisions from a marketability point of view. They can go into media, they can go into entrepreneurship and business, because they are a brand, they are the business. Or so they can use themselves to sell themselves. They can even go into things such as brand partnerships, where a certain brand actually saw that this type of personality matches what we are trying to sell, and thus we can use it to our benefit. So, in other words, it's all about leverage. Exposure added to character will definitely build leverage. So, that's very important. Now, number three, when we're looking at aspects of adaptability, housemates adapt to different personalities. Remember, it's group dynamics at the end of the day. Limited resources. There are weeks where there's punishments, there's scarcity, they are rationed in terms of food and water, and they have to use that accordingly. And they have to use negotiation and some sort of other skills to work through those particular challenges. They have structured tasks which they need to complete and compete in, right? And there's the element of adapting to public votes. You may have been nominated this week. If you're nominated again next week and you survive, then you know that possibly it's either you're lucky or you're doing something right, something that is very relatable. So those who resist change, unfortunately, struggle. And in the real world, the same can be said, right? As things are changing, as technology is enhancing, as AI is helping us perform certain tasks quicker, you don't use that, you don't adapt to that, you don't leverage on the change that is happening. What happens is that you struggle. That's all there is to it. So, adaptability determines survival in this particular environment. Then, number four, there's task based skills development that happens in the house, right? Housemates participate in challenges, they debate, there's poetry, there's creative productions that they have to go into, such as acting and storytelling. There's team competitions where they actually compete for head of house. They compete through creative activities where they actually get to earn money so that even when they leave the house, they have some sort of foundation from a monetary standpoint. Because being in the house for 2 3 months, you would have lost possible income. So this is an opportunity for them to build costs into advantages and opportunity, rather than the loss of monetary value if they can win certain tasks and work hard of it on it. And then there's your performance activities as well that they need to do in the house. So what do all these things, these activities that they participate in, what do they build? They build negotiation skills. They build public speaking skills, because they have to come up with something, then present it to the other housemates as well as to Big Brother, right? They create leadership, because when you win head of house, then your leadership is tested. Are you a strategic leader? Are you a systematic leader? Or is it something that you need to build on? If you didn't know before, the exposure can help you in that regard. They learn things such as collaboration. They have to collaborate. It's a group. So sometimes you know that you won't get your way. Same happens in life. You won't always get your way. And of course, time management. Because of the strictness of the house, there's certain things where there are limitations under. And you thus have to manage your time accordingly and your tasks accordingly. So Big Brother is actually an accelerated social development laboratory, a lab. It's a lab of people that have to live a particular way. Think about prison and prison mates and all the stories that you hear about the rules that get developed by the prison mates themselves, and how it has to be adhered to, and the different groups that exist and the dynamics that exist and how they need to act in accordance to the environment that they're in. That's what the adaptability aspect talks to, particularly in group dynamic settings such as the Big Brother house. Then number five, there's strategy and alliance building. So some housemates treat it like chess. It's a chess game. I sacrifice my pawn so that my queen can hit the bishop or the rook or the knight. It's a chess game. And each move is strategized and thought of carefully, because the goal is to win the money. But to do that, you have to not be evicted from the house. You have to try your best to be likable and relatable, so that you're not as nominated as many times as possible, because that enhances or increases or accelerates your ability to leave the house, right? So they form alliances, they manage perceptions, because within the house dynamics, there are perceptions that they have of each other, especially in the beginning. Then they start learning each other under those structured environments. But also, there's the public perception that they have to manage. Who are they when the cameras are off? Will determine who they are as the cameras are on. And in the Big Brother house, they forever on. Ask yourself as an individual, if the cameras were forever on, what would you want the world to see? What would you want the world to see about you? Food for thought, right? It also teaches them to think long term, not short term, but long term. They have to think long term, and their strategies have to be long term, because their goal is to be there until actual eviction happens, or the final or the finale happens, where then the votes are tallied and the winner is determined, right? And then it also teaches them to avoid unnecessary enemies. So someone like Tandega, who's repulsive in her words, impulsive in her thoughts, and clings to one person, if you look at her behavior, it is, in my eyes, a bit of a disadvantage for her, because all she did was create a lot of enemies. You look at all the nominations in this particular past week, because I upload my videos on a Monday. So if you look at the nominations, then you can see that most of them nominated her. Now that increases a chance, like it or not, because even the following from the public can diminish. People can vote this week and skip a week, or next week they vote for somebody else. But if you're consistently creating enemies, then in the house it can work against you. Such is the same in a work environment in real life. The more enemies you create, the harder it is to work and create systems that are effective and efficient for your workplace. So life rewards strategic thinking, not emotional reactions. So you need to be a lot smarter than that. Those were the positives. What are the negative elements as far as this social experiment called Big Brother Mzansi is concerned? Let's get into it. Firstly, there's short term fame syndrome. In other words, some evicted housemates, the trend will tell us, right? After they experience sudden fame, then they struggle with the relevance when the hype dies down. It's unfortunate. Same can be said with shows such as Idols, where a person joins the show, becomes popular, and even wins. And then suddenly they're famous, they're popular. They went from not being recognized to being recognized by everybody. But does it translate into actual success? Or will you die down and go back to a worse place where we now found out that you are depressed and you can't handle the social pressure, and there's an increase in anxiety, and there's so many other factors that you're not into, right? So a lot of people fail to convert exposure into sustainable income, unfortunately. So the lesson is fame without structure fades very quickly. That's a very negative thing. Number two, the mental health pressure. I spoke to the anxiety element, but think about it. You are isolated from the real world. So there's isolation. And now you are in the world because you've been evicted or you've won. That transition is a very tough one. Number two, public criticism. Because people will always have something to say, negative or positive, but the negative always trends. So the critics will have a field day with you, particularly on platforms such as X. Those types of platforms that are made for us to see them as toxic. Unfortunately, that type of public criticism can weigh heavy on a person who's just left the house and rejoined the real world. Then social media trolling that comes via that public criticism element, or people not because they don't really like you, and not because when they see you they won't ask for a photo, but because they are behind the keyboard. It's much easier for them to formulate an opinion, unfortunately. And it is what it is, it's real life. Then there's reputational damage. So you always need to be guarding your reputation wherever you are, whatever you do, even in the real world. Let your reputation be your crown. Let your reputation be your crown. Protect it by all means. Make sure that whatever action you do, you've guarded your reputation with all your life. Because research actually shows that reality TV participants often face anxiety, they face identity shifts, they forget who they originally were, and then they feed into this fame drug. And unfortunately, most of the time, it doesn't end well. Then it ends up in post show depression, as I mentioned earlier. So, what's the lesson there? Visibility requires psychological resilience. You don't take things for granted, you actually move with them and push with them. Then, the other negative factor, number three, or the negative element, public perception versus reality. Editing influences narratives. The more you edit your life, unfortunately, the more the cracks will show. So a person in the show can either be a villain, hi Tandega, they can be a hero. Who's a hero in the current house? Hero. Liema can be some sort of a hero, as she was defending a lot of the bullying that was happening earlier on. And Nelly, who was evicted, also got evicted under scrupulous circumstances because she couldn't emotionally regulate herself. But she was trying to be the hero, right? Then you get a strategist. I think Ashay in this season is more of a strategist because he's trying to be liked by everyone while also exposing his linguistic ability and proficiency within the Zulu language, and thus trying to appeal to the Zulus. But I also think Bravo B is also some sort of a strategist, always trying to act dumb, always trying to act neutral, but knowing who exactly he's appealing to. And then you get your manipulators, people that when it's diary room time, they'll express who they are, what they really think about others, but in front of them, they'll always be smiling and trying to fit the narrative. Then you get your neutralists, people who are out there personality wise, but in terms of judging their heart and their behaviors, what tricks you saw, then you know that there's not much that you can worry about when it comes to those type of people. But based on public framing, don't be swallowed into the character that they give you. Even in life, don't be swallowed into the character that the world gives you and the title and the paint with which they brush you. Don't let that actually shape who you are. Because reputation, as I said, is fragile and most of the time narrative driven. It's very fragile. And that's why I was emphasizing that you must guard it with your life. So I don't want to name certain people in previous seasons because, as I said, I wasn't so well versed with Big Brother in previous seasons. But from the little bit of research that I've done, I can surmise some of the traits and patterns that came from people that have been in the Big Brother house in the first 5 seasons, right? Number one, some housemates have built strong influencing careers, others have launched businesses, others have entered into media and radio. Some now are even podcasting. There's one that has just joined the Podcast and Chill network with McG and will be interviewing people alongside, who's that guy that does a song? Hennessy. Hennessy, that kid, man. Ntwana el Tshego. Yes, Tshego. And some have secured brand ambassador roles, and some have transitioned into acting and entertainment. Unfortunately, others, they've faded from public relevance. They've struggled to monetize their exposure, and they've lost momentum, and thus are now just part of the background, but in a worse position because they've also had to adapt to the peak of fame according to how high they've taken it, and then to the lowest, the jambi level of lack of fame or lack of being recognized or more so being judged, right? So the key distinction between who succeeds usually is that they treat the show as a platform. They invest in branding. They maintain discipline. They avoid controversy post the show, and they have management structures. In other words, they take it as a business. They have people that are going to manage them. When do you get interviews? How do you get brand deals? How are you becoming an ambassador of this product or this service? How are you adding value to the world and to others? Those are key distinctions between those that win and those that don't, right? So the key lesson for the starters, you as my starters, is exposure is opportunity, not success. So whatever you're exposed to in life, grab the opportunity and build towards the success because nothing is guaranteed. Other bigger life lessons. Lesson one, you are always being watched. Not literally, not literally, but think about it. You're always being watched. Someone is observing you. Your boss is observing you. Your colleague is observing you. Your partner is observing you. Your kids are observing you, and they're all learning something and taking away something from you and your behavior. So, character under pressure reveals true identity. Your customers are observing you. So be careful. Wherever you are, just remember you are always being watched. Number two, strategy beats emotion. Housemates who react impulsively often get evicted. Unfortunately, Nelly is a prime example of that. Those who calculate stay longer because life mirrors that. You are in a workplace. If you're overly emotional, if you're overly dramatic, if you're impulsive in nature and your behavior doesn't make sense and suit the dynamics of the vision, the identity, the values and principles of the company, you're likely to be out. But if you embody them, you capture them, then you're likely to accelerate your growth, your promotions, even ending up in business partnerships where you get some equity. Very important. Lesson three, environment shapes behavior. So put anyone in competition, put anyone in isolation, put anyone in scarcity, and behavior changes. This teaches you to guard your environment. When we were growing up, our parents would always say, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Because the environment that you put yourself in, the exposure that you put yourselves in, those will determine how far you are or how far you get as far as succeeding goes. Consider how currently nerds are winning. Those that were laughed at back in the day because they loved the library or they loved studying, they loved learning new things, and they exposed themselves to positive things, they are winning today. They're winning today, and the next generation, we must teach them it's okay to be a nerd. It's okay to learn. It's okay to be able to adapt to every environment, but with your sanctity intact. Guard your environment at all times. Then, lesson four, convert moments into movements. Winning the show is one thing, building a life after the show is another. That's where the discipline element actually comes in. If I were to go into more detail, there are certain research elements that can be incorporated in this video. Number one, it's social experiment theory. Reality TV basically mimics group dynamics, social identity theory, and competition psychology. Then there's public voting psychology. People vote based on relatability, emotional connection, perceived authenticity, and cultural alignment. So authenticity influences influence or impact, right? Then there's parasocial relationships, viewers from emotional attachments uh, to the housemates themselves. This drives, or viewers basically get attached to housemates, and this drives loyalty, voting, and brand value. So it's important for branding discussions. Make sure that if you enter the house, even as you leave it, you are like that. Now, in the workplace, same thing. Win the support of your colleagues so that they understand your capabilities, your skills, your strengths, and then you can be able to earn your position further within the value purporting environment that you're living in or working in, right? So, in closing, Big Brother is not just for entertainment. So, my perception honestly was wrong. It's not as dumb as I thought it was. Seeing all the growth from all the individuals, but also the frustrations and how, to a certain extent, under those conditions, it mimics life, then you see that it's more than just entertainment. So I re emphasize it's a branding accelerator, it's a social experiment, it's a pressure test, and it's a mirror of society. And the real lesson is the house doesn't create character, it reveals it. The house doesn't create character, it reveals it. So the question is, if your life was live streamed, as I asked earlier, what would it reveal? My starters, what would your life reveal if it was live streamed 24/7? Love you. I appreciate you. Starters build character before exposure. So I'll see you on the next one, guys. Cheers.